Okay, so welcome everyone. Um, uh, Today's session we will be mainly going over two main subjects: Streamlit, which is an application that enables you to do some very, uh, what I think anyway, are very cool things. Um, uh, the idea behind Streamlit is let's say you created an application and you wanted to deploy it. You want to um, have your customers use and interact with it. Now, typically, there are several ways to go about it. And one of the ways is you build a Google Colab. And then when you use Google Colab, you can create a notebook, annotate it with Markdown, and do all those sorts of things. And they can run various cells, but it's not overly user friendly, right? So uh, it's not useful in many situations. It's good if the other person has some technical knowledge, but otherwise it's got some limitations in its presentation and things like that. So the next option is to perhaps build a whole front end for your application. Now, those of you who have taken MAD 1 and MAD 2, you know how significant an undertaking that is. The nice thing is the customer gets a very good interactive system to use that's custom built for them. But the resources from your side is enormous, right? So there is a happy middle ground, and that's called using something like Streamlit. And Streamlit is gives the customers a front end, an interactive front end, a reactive front end, if you want to call it that. And it connects to your application. And then your application does whatever processing it requires. And then it produces a result for them to see. Now, you might ask, okay, how is that different from, say, doing Flask and all these sorts of front ends that you normally view? How is that different? The difference is speed and the resources required. Streamlit is very quick and easy to deploy compared to putting a full application on the front end. So that's what Streamlit's advantage is. Before I go into properly into Streamlit, I'll just quickly load up the portal for TDS and just have a quick look here. So week 8. So I'm not going to be discussing uh, Power BI because it's primarily a Microsoft application that's behind. Well, some of or half of its features are behind a paywall, and then um, the other half, it's not really what's discussed in this audio. So, from an end-term perspective, I will not really expect much questions from Power BI. The only reason the video has been shown here is to show you that such a tool exists in order to do um, quick graphs that are much faster than, say, constructing them in Excel or things. It produces a lot of ready-made things that you can quickly come up with Power BI. And of course, you can always use Excel to put together a storytelling uh, application which tells something about the data. So I won't be going through this either. It's pretty self-explanatory. Um, you can do the same thing in Google Sheets or in Excel, make charts, tables, pivot tables, and all sorts of things. There were some things that were supposed to be deployed for this term, but due to some logistics issues in the back end, we were unfortunately not able to have these things. What I would suggest is next term, when these content, uh, when this content does get released, just check in on TDS the website and see, rather the YouTube portal, and check out if the videos are available too. Because I still think they will be quite useful resources going further. So that's something to look forward next term, although you won't be graded on it. But for your future career, it might prove to be useful. I'll be mainly focusing on deployment today, as I've mentioned earlier. There are some tools for anonymizing data before you actually display data. There are many reasons to do that. Most of it has to do with legal regulations concerning not being able to identify people, because people have a right to privacy, particularly in the West. India does have some privacy laws, but they're not as strong as the regulations in the West. So that's why anonymizing data is quite an important aspect of processing data and then creating a result from it. So I won't go through much of this. A lot of it is theoretical. The tools themselves, like um, the arts tool, you'll have to download it and um, play around with it. But it also requires a little bit of understanding of the theory behind it. Some things that I would suggest with regards to understanding the use of such tools is to actually look at this link over here called list of tools. And there are some, from an end-term perspective, just keep in mind what these things are. K anonymity, what it means, and what L diversity, this term here, L diversity, um, and just being familiar with those terms, what it actually means. So K anonymity is simple. All it means is if you've got, say, 100 records and you anonymize data in such a way that the anonymized subset that you get, uh, each record in there guarantees at least 10 records are indistinguishable from each other for every data point. So by that, I mean, like if I look at, so in this session today, there are about 14 people, right? And there might be some things that identify you. So your username is one, for example. Perhaps if it had your roll number, you would get some idea of which term you joined, which year you joined. So some data like that will be available. And if I run an anonymization tool and say I want K to be 3, then if we were all anonymized based on our usernames, so then let's say, for example, instead of Carlton De Silva, my username would be anonymized to say 4x or something. But what would happen is there would be 3 other people that would have 4x. So then your K anonymity value would be 3. In other words, each data point, in this case, X4 or something like that, would refer to potentially 3 other people. And that's the minimum. It could be more. There could be 10 or 15 people that have the same number. And there are many ways to group that. So if it's, say, by age, one classic way of doing that is to put them in buckets. And you've seen that in statistics 1, right? Where you can put anyone from age 20 to 30 in a bucket, 30 to 40 in a bucket, things like that. So that's another anonymizing tool. But of course, just an age won't anonymize a person. But the reason why we look at anonymization that way is because you will have what are called primary attributes and quasi attributes. And primary ones are where it's immediately identified. If you look at my username, you immediately know it's me. Whereas quasi attributes might be, a good example is, let's say you're looking at some census data, okay, and my name is not there, but in the census data there is a postcode, there is some other criteria, and let's say, for argument's sake, my name has been anonymized, and you think, yep, we have K20 as the anonymization factor. So K20 means uh, I will match at least 20 other records in terms of the anonymization. So it might be hard to match me up. But these quasi attributes, this metadata that is around your record, if someone gets a hold of that, the question is, can they still reverse that? Can they reverse the anonymization finding? So that's what these quasi attributes are. And so anonymity has to do with dealing with those issues. And if the population of that particular location is very low, then perhaps they can reconstruct it. If they know someone is um, doing an online degree and no one else is doing an online degree in that subset of data, then perhaps they can immediately identify it. So how do we fix that? Well, it's complicated, which is why we don't go into too much detail regarding it. But just be aware of the basics regarding K anonymity. Is the takeaway I want you to have from it. So that's with regards to anonymization. Um, so now I'll talk about Streamlit. So as I was saying, Streamlit is useful for being able to deploy your applications and do the storytelling part. We assume you have anonymized the data and or your application takes care of those issues. And now we'll talk about how we can deploy the front end. So for this, I will require you to use something like Visual Studio Code. You may ask me, can I do this in Colab? I'm not entirely sure how to achieve this in Colab because the one thing about Streamlit is Streamlit requires the whole application to run in a single go. So Colab, it's made up of many cells. They all run independently, and Streamlit doesn't quite work that way. You need an entire application to be built for Streamlit to work. So if you're going to follow on and learn how to use it, then I almost 100% recommend using some kind of editor now to write some Python code. That's what we'll do to show you the beauty of Streamlit. So, so the first thing we need for this is okay, a couple of things before you even start. You also need a GitHub account, and you'll see that in a moment why. The GitHub account will be useful to push code onto GitHub, and then from GitHub we will uh, connect to the GitHub repo in order to deploy the application. So these are all essential components that you will need to follow through for today. You need a GitHub account. You need an editor that will be able to run your entire code, and uh, you will need Heroku in order to do all the things I'm going to show you today. So we'll start with creating a folder. I'll call this Streamlit demo or something like that. And then let's open that folder. Okay. Right. The next thing, as usual, we will need a virtual environment so that we can get the so I can install the dependencies that are required. And the very first dependency we will need for today is Streamlit. So And the next thing, are you guys following along? Because uh, you can try out some things while we are doing today's session. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then create this file called .gitignore. Okay? This will be useful. Actually, before I even do that, let's initialize a Git repo. So I've got already the extension installed for Git, so I can just initialize it here directly. And then say, okay, yeah. So it's initialized, but it's right now saying that I've got a lot of files on here. But that's because if you look on here, this .vnv has like thousands of files. So we don't want to include this in our Git repo, the virtual environment. So the way to
Now
get
you need the
this,
git ignore. Now you need the
yes,
git ignore to ignore that particular file.
correct. So that's what I'll do. I put dot git ignore. So that's the name of the file. And then in here, I basically tell it what I want it to not commit to the Git repo. As soon as I save it, you notice it went from a bright green color to a dull gray color. So what that means is it will not store that in the Git repo. So that's the basic setup for that. And another thing I'm going to do is I will just reload the window, and now you can see that the only file that it's actually going to commit is this one file. Before it was saying 10,000 plus files, now it's only one. That's because Git checks this file, and when it looks inside this file, it says, okay, these are the files I don't want to commit. The .vnv, anything with .vnv. It could be a directory, it could be a file. Anything that starts with .vnv, it won't uh, commit to the repo. So that's fine. Okay. The next thing is we need our Streamlit application. So I'll just call it app.py. And uh, we downloaded Streamlit. Yeah, so it's all ready over there. And we start off by just saying, let's say, import Streamlit, say ST. So it's easy to refer to. And then now remember I told you that normally when you use a Flask application or something, there's a lot of work that goes in behind it, right? You'll have a Jinja template, you will have HTML code, there will be at least two sets of files, you'll have to connect them, variables have to be passed, all this sort of thing, right? But this is where the magic of Streamlit is. You don't have to do any of those things. uh, and so we'll do a simple working example. Okay, if I do st, which is the Streamlit application, the library and its functions, and then I say title, and I put the title and say TDS. Then, okay. Now what this does is, um, although I won't run it straight away, what this does is it will create a whole HTML template. It will have a title ready to um, uh, display, and it generates all the things you require for it to work straight away. Um, but before we continue, what I want to do is add some few more interesting things to the page so that it's just more useful than what we got, right? So remember, this will give you a nice title page for your web application. So the next thing we can do is we can perhaps have two sections to your web page. Because when you look at web pages, sometimes you'll have two sections like this, right? So rather than having just a single page a single, not single page application, but a single frame within which to do everything, let's make it more interesting. Let's have a sidebar and a main frame. So how do you do that in Streamlit? It's extremely easy. You just again do st, so let's say sidebar dot, and let's say we want a header for this sidebar. So we can say some user input we want to do. Okay. So that will give us a header in the sidebar with saying user input, and let's get some user input, right? So and store it in a variable. So some user input might, so we can just get some text, for example. Oops. And then, so how do we get text? How do we get input text, right? So normally we would get it from like the console. But what we'll do is all we need to do is, first of all, we say where we want to store this widget, as it is called. And then this widget is called text input. And then we put a prompt and say, enter some text. And then we can even put some default values. So, like when you have a text box in a form, they'll usually have some default values in there, right? So we can say, hello. Yes, do this. Okay. So this will create a form control, like you would see with any. So like this is a form control, right? So this will create one of these things. It'll put it in the sidebar, and then you'll be able to enter any text in there. And whatever text you enter in there, it's completely reactive control. It will store it in this variable called user text. So something else will do, something more useful. Perhaps you want some numbers. Again, the same thing. Nothing unusual. I can't type today. And let's make it more interesting. We'll instead of just taking a number like we do in a text box, let's use a slider. And yeah, so select a number. Sounds good. And then let's put a min value. So if you want a min value, let's say 10, a max value, let's say 100. And let's put a default value. It should start at 50 or something. Yeah. So now this will create a slider control with which takes numbers. And now we need to do some transformations, right? So your program will take some input from some user. It'll do some transformations. So let's do that. Let's give the user some controls that they can use to transform this data that we get. So maybe what would be an example of a simple transform we could do on a text? Maybe we could do uppercase. Yeah, what do you guys think? We do some uppercase. So let's see. Please. Actually, permission. So that it doesn't collide with anything else. And say st dot sidebar. And how will they select this control? We'll give them a checkbox about that, right? Because then they can do more than just do more than just one operation on their data. Another control we could give is perhaps give them some radio buttons. Or actually, yeah, that's what we could do. Is this is a better idea. Let's do a reverse text as as an optional thing. And then we can do some uppercase and lowercase as a radio button. Sidebar, radio, and we'll put some prompt here to case. And the options we can give them will be we can get back the original text that we wanted. Maybe that's a nice option to have. We can do uppercase. Perhaps we can do some lowercase as well. Next thing, what we can do is, okay. Actually, before we even do this, let me comment this out. Let's try and see what this looks like, because we got a few things on it. Right? So the only thing I have to do now is to write something that reverses the text. So let's say reverse text. That's true. Then you can say transform text equal to so that reverses the text, and then st dot right. So another nice thing about Streamlit is you can use Markdown directly into these functions. So you can pre-format the text in Markdown. So let's do an example of that. Text. St dot right. Okay, I think that's good enough for now, and we'll do some more additional things afterwards. So I saved the file, and right now I've not pushed it to Git, but that's okay. And how do I get to test out this application? Let me just zoom this a little bit big so you can see. Basically, I go to the console here, and I type Streamlit, and I just say run app.py. That's all I do. And it launches the application. Some error. But having said that, just writing a few lines of code, I hope you guys are a bit amazed by this, right? We've got these nice little controls here, got sliders. We've got a function with which does checkbox. There's obviously some error I've made here. But all this just took a few seconds, right? I mean, I was talking, but if I really put my nose to it, this would have been done in no time, right? And this is an actual running web application without using Flask, without all those crazy things. I mean, I hope you're impressed by that. I know it doesn't seem like it's doing a lot, but I hope you're impressed by that. I certainly find it amazing. So let's see what was wrong here. So the error set. Transform. What's the issue? Oh, it's because it goes through an if, right? So if the if doesn't trigger, then it won't do this transformation. So that's the reason. So if I put an else here and say transform text equal to user text, hopefully that should fix that. And I think, if I remember correctly, let's see if we reload this, does it work? Yeah. So look at that. Without even stopping the web application, all I did was I changed it here, saved it, and I didn't even rerun the Streamlit application. It automatically, in real time, fixed the problem, as in it recompiled and reran everything. And this is just incredible. So what's happening? So you see this text input here that we put, hello TDS students. And so it went through this and produced all this stuff. It checked if there is reverse text. And at the moment, it's not triggered. The reason it's not triggered is because it only triggers if I actually click on this. So reverse text has nothing in it. So it went to the else and put user text in transform text. And then it put an output here. And notice the markdown also worked. And the markdown, you can do any markdown in this write function. Okay. So if you've seen markdown before, for example, when you go to GitHub, there's almost everything on that front end is markdown, right? So all those rich transformations you can do, you can just put it in this write over here and it will produce it here. It's just so fast and so beautiful to do. So let's see if this function of ours works, right? Because that's what we wanted to try. This is all well and good, but at the end of the day, a customer of yours wants to be able to do something with your application. So let's see if this works. Oh, there's an error. What's the error? Right. Okay. Let's see. How did that happen? Should have worked. Okay, for now I'll just oh yeah, it's oh yeah, sorry. Okay, so reverse text doesn't actually store the word reverse text. It actually stores the Boolean value of checkbox. So that's the mistake I made. So actually it is user text that's being transformed, right? Because that's what's in the this field over here. This stuff is going into user text, and it's user text that we want to reverse. So I'll save this. Let's have a look again. Reload this page, and let's try it now. Well, hey, isn't that amazing? We've just created a Streamlit app that does a function that reverses text. And let's see what happens if we do this. Are you guys amazed by that or what? I mean, I know it's not an amazing application, right? But I hope you can begin to see the power of Streamlit. Any thoughts on this? We'll do some more things, but
Extremely amazing, because
yeah, it is.
you just wrote 21 lines of code, and we could do a lot of things. But let's say we are trying to use Flask or something. It would be like more than 21 for sure.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, and like I said, I'll just show you some more things. Okay. So this was just a naughty example, as we say, right? So let's do something with that number that we looked at. Okay? So perhaps what we can do with the number is we can do some simple transformation. So the number is, and let's say result equal to number times 5 or something. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is any transformation that occurs on the number, we want to straight away output it. So let's say st dot write, and we can put an f string this time, and say let's do that and say the number multiply by 5 is yeah. Okay, so I just save that. Let's see what happens. Reload this page. Oh, look at that. It's all ready. Now let's see what happens. Oh my. Interactivity without hardly doing any coding at all. I mean, I don't know. For me, this is totally amazing. Okay. I know you guys might be wondering why is Carlton so excited. But yeah, I mean, you got an interactive control. It's reactive. As you move this up and down without writing barely any code. Remember, I've not even written a function. All I've done is the code executes, it calculates this result, and then outputs it here. And you can imagine all sorts of deployment scenarios where you can do amazing things with this, right? Okay. So let's try a couple more transformations, and then let's go to the next bit. So ideally, I would like you guys to write some of your own Streamlit code and demonstrate it, okay, for the next few minutes. But I'll show a couple more things, right? So you can see what other things. So remember, we had this case that we were trying to do, right? So let's make use of this. Let's give the user some options. And now what we'll do is we'll say, we'll check the case first. Yeah, let's do that. So if k is equal to, say, someone said something. Something in chat. How does it do it? Does it have an inbuilt redefined? I'm not entirely sure about the technology behind it, Sharath. What I do know is anytime there is a change in the front end, or anytime there's a change in the source code, these are the two trigger points for it. So when it detects a change on the front end or detects a change in the source code, it immediately reruns the whole application, and that's kind of how it does it. But with regards to how it exactly achieves that, I'm not entirely sure. There is a lot of documentation available, as you can imagine, on the nitty-gritty of Streamlit. But yeah. Okay, so let me go back to what we were doing. We wanted some more controls. So let's do the uppercase, if it's uppercase. And we want to transform the text. Yeah, so text upper. And then let's say elif case lowercase. And then we can do transform text to lower. And we need an else. Transform text to text. Okay. Yeah, and that should be it, I think. Actually, we don't need this anymore because it will run through this first segment here and it will hit this else, and it will put use the text and transform. So when it comes here, we don't need that extra else condition anymore. Okay, let's see what happened. Let's see what amazing transformations have happened here. Oh my, we have radio controls now. Let's see, do these all still work? Yeah, these all still work. Let's put something else. Let's see who all are in this session. So we've got Yuvraj. So hi, Yuvraj. Streamlit is awesome. Okay, cool. Right. And as soon as I clicked away from it, it reactively sorted that out. Let's see if the reverse thing still works. It does. Nice, nice. Now we've got it set on original. Let's do uppercase. Hey, look at that, uppercase. Let's do lowercase. Hey, lowercase. Let's go back to original. Original. Let's do reverse uppercase. Oh, that didn't work. That's because of the order in which these were written, right? But nevertheless, this is a demonstration of what's possible. So I hope that was useful for you guys. I've shown you how to write Streamlit code. The basic thing is pip install Streamlit. Please put it in a virtual folder, okay, in a virtual environment, because these are all technologies that keep changing. They're quite new. They keep updating it frequently, and you don't want to break anything by installing them directly on your system. So always use virtual environment. But this is something not new. If you've attended my previous sessions, I've mentioned this many times before. Then you import Streamlit and you use Streamlit's various functions to generate these things. Now, Streamlit, what I showed you, this is just scratching the surface of what it's capable of. it's capable of a lot more. And my suggestion is go to this docs.streamlit.io. Uh, you can, of course, go through these first steps to kind of explore what it is. But this is what I've always found useful: API reference. And this is where, I talked about the write function. I've talked about some of the elements that we use, the fact that you can use Markdown. I mean, just looking at Markdown, for example, right? So if you go here, they'll show you some cool things. If you use Markdown, you can do all these cool little things without any headache. Just import Markdown in here, and it will do all the things you expect Markdown to do. So it's really very, very powerful. Streamlit, and you can do things very rapidly. Iteration is very rapid, and it's really good. So this API reference is what I usually use, and comes under various sections: text elements, stream, write elements, data elements, how to deal with charts, various input widgets. This is another useful one. So if you want buttons, so you want a function, you get some inputs, and only process the thing after you say click me or something, then it shows you. It gives you nice. The documentation is excellent, absolutely excellent. So, and gives you little examples. So you can even try this out and say hello, reset, and it just works. It just works, and it's so beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. And they even have little tutorial videos for these controls. So please explore it. I'm sure you will find this useful in your career at some point, particularly for prototypes. Imagine you've been asked by your company manager, your line manager usually, we need to, so we have created this great model in the back that does all this stuff. The customer wants to see a working mock-up prototype of how good the model is working. You don't have days to create a huge front end and things of that sort. That will come later. But then what you can do is you can quickly create an interactive mock-up for your customer to use, access the model, see all the transformations that it comes, and you can do lots of amazing things, right? I didn't even show you, like they have some, let's see if they've got it here. Yeah, okay. So here's an example of, I won't code this, but I'll just show you, right? So a quick mock-up, right? And you wanted to do a mapping demo or something. So this is a Streamlit application. It immediately works, runs the application, uses PyDeck chart, does everything in the background that your application normally does. But you don't have to worry about the front end. Your customer can deal with all this, and immediately run various things that your application does. And you don't have to spend a lot of time creating a working prototype to test things out. So that's the basics of Streamlit. Any questions at this point? Okay, so I see
So one
Ram.
thing, Carlton, I want to ask.
Yeah.
So let's say we built a model, ML model,
Yeah.
and we want to deploy it.
Yes.
So this platform makes it quite easy because we don't have to work on the front end. We just, let's say the chat GPT interface. When we open it, we get like new chat, previous chats, then our profile icon there, one text box there, one like enter button there. So in the back end, the model would work, but for that controller model handoff, the Streamlit would help. Is that the main scenario to learn this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's exactly it. You want to quickly be able to deploy web applications. What it's doing is effectively it's running a web application, right? That's what the front end is, and it's a quick way to build your front end to connect to your models that are working in the background and doing various functions and things. And you can trigger those functions using those controls I just showed you. Right now we were doing Noddy examples, where it's just running some line of code, but it could be functions that are being triggered, right? So each of those controls could go to a function, and then you trigger the function. It gets its inputs from the front end user, and then runs the models. Yeah, it's absolutely the idea behind it. And if you look at the adoption rate of Streamlit, I mean, it has just exploded precisely because of how useful it is. I don't know if there is. I think there might be. Let's see here. Yeah, probably here. Right. So there's a little blog on Streamlit, right? So this is when Streamlit started, and look at its adoption compared to all these other things that have been available. It's just exploding, right? And you can see the reason why. I've just demonstrated how absolutely astonishing uh, and quick it is to get something working, as opposed to using Flask or any of the other traditional things that people have used in the past. So, and you don't have to just use it locally on the system, right? So what I've shown you is locally now. So right now, all I did was, if you look on this address, it's localhost, and it's running at port 850. So that's okay when you're testing, but at some point you want this to be a deployable application. That's where its real usefulness will come, right? So that's what the next bit of it is going to be. I'm going to show you, now that you have a web application, I mean, amazingly, with just few lines of code, a powerful web application, I might add, which is reactive, which is able to do lots and lots of things, how we can actually deploy this, right? So that's what I'll show you next. Any other questions? I know that Ram has a question. So it says, I don't know what type of questions we can expect in end term. Can you explain about it? Okay. So an example of questions you might get in end term for something like the Streamlit, for example, because there's no GA, right? So I've been working on, let's see if I can put it up here. Yeah. So an example of a question that you might get with Streamlit might be something like that, right? What Streamlit command? Oh, I guess I'm not showing my screen. Hang on, sorry. So this could be an example of a question. What Streamlit command is used to add text to the app interface? Right. So I don't think I demonstrated, right? But it'll be st.text. That's if you want just plain text to go on there. And then you can look at, so maybe another question might be, okay, so what's the purpose of st.button command in Streamlit app? So then you can, so these are the kind of questions you'll get in the end with regards to Streamlit specifically. It won't be anything complicated, but you'll have to at least give it a whirl, do basic, use the basic controls. Because if you try and just read documentation, it won't stick in your mind. And when the end term comes, you'll struggle to answer such questions. So my suggestion is definitely, definitely go through the this API reference, and just get a basic familiarity and try them out. Just try them. Do little. I mean, here's an example where they've even put a table, which is so cool. I mean, imagine displaying tables in HTML and Ginger. It was such a pain in the backside, right? This is so amazing. So yeah, try them out. Try these little commands. They're not very difficult. Try the text elements, try the header, all these, just basic things. Because we will ask you basic questions. We won't ask you very complicated questions. But go through this APIs, just the basic thing. Just be familiar with what they are and how to use them. We won't ask like very complicated things. I highly doubt you will ask like So some input widgets will be there, as you see in buttons, because these are normal things you expect in a form, right? A submit button, some links. So everything you could do in Jinja and Flask, almost virtually everything you can do in Streamlit, but you can do it much faster. Iteration is much better. Time to deployment is faster. Okay, so that's concerning. So now let's see how we can get this into a deployable solution. So the next thing is, okay. So the next aspect is we got a web application. It runs locally. How do I deploy it in at scale? Okay. So for that we will use something called Heroku. Heroku is essentially what it does is it gives you a virtual. I want to say virtual machine. It gives you a, what's the word I'm looking for? Container, a virtual container, which runs a web server, and the web server helps you to have your application visible to the world, and that's what Heroku does. Now, why use Heroku as opposed to say doing it on your computer or something? So your computer is very limited, right? If you deploy a web server from your computer, A, you have to keep it running 24/7. B, you've got to have the network bandwidth to deal with whoever connects to it. All these sorts of various things like that. It's not scalable, is what I'm trying to get at. If suddenly thousands of people suddenly start hitting your IP address, your IP ISP, internet service provider, might suddenly throttle you and all sorts of things. Right? And of course, resources. Your application might require a lot of resources. What Heroku does is it's scalable. It can scale as per your use. They have various models, pay-as-you-go model and all that sort of thing. But the idea is scaling. And what is Heroku? It's classified as software as a service. That's exactly what Heroku is. Software as a service. So you're not buying a machine, you're not renting a machine. In the past, that's what people would do. They would rent server space and all that sort of thing. But instead, Heroku is just software as a service. It launches, it spins up more and more resources as you require it. And it's, in one sense, it's like Google Colab or Google Cloud. It spins up more resources as you require it and spins them down as you don't need them anymore. So that's what Heroku is. You have to create a Heroku account. In order to create a Heroku account, I'm not going to show you how to do it, but you will need a debit or a credit card. Like I mentioned earlier, you're not required to do that, but I will demonstrate to you how this exactly works. So let's say you want a new application, because we have created a new application. You put the name, so TDS, and we'll call it, so today is the 19th, so 19 PA session. And at the moment, they only have these two places. So choose Europe because it's much closer to us. Say create app. And then once it creates the app, you connect to GitHub. And this is where the whole aspect about GitHub becomes important, because you'll be able to run the application from there. So before you do this, there are some things you have to prepare for Heroku to be able to deploy this app. So now I'm going to show you those things. So let's go back to our code here. So the first thing Heroku requires, it requires a file called CFIL, proc file, okay? A process file, basically. So that's one thing that's required. I won't fill this in right now. I'll just tell you the requirements first. So the next thing also you need is In fact, this is you need this before you need the proc file. It's called requirements.txt. And what does requirements.txt have? It will have all your dependencies that are required for this application. So the best way to create this is not by how I showed you just now, but I just typed it in just to show you. That's what we need. The best way to do that, by the way, my Streamlit application is still running, so I'm going to press Control C and stop it. Zoom in here. So the best way to create a requirements is to do pip freeze. If you look at pip freeze, I'll just type in pip freeze for now, and you'll see that a whole list of dependencies are run. So these are all the libraries that are run and dependencies that are required for an application to run. When we installed Streamlit, it installed all these things. And interesting to see, like it has Jinja and all in there. So clearly it must be using Jinja in the background. It uses Pillow. It uses lots of other things that if you have done a mad one, you might be familiar with. So these are all the dependencies, right? So we need this all in a requirements file. So the way to do that is you say pip freeze, put this redirection operator, and then say requirements. Okay. So if you look here now, there's a requirements.txt file that has suddenly shown up. So everything that it showed here when I said pip freeze, I've redirected this output into this requirements file. So let's have a look. And as you can see, all of them are shown up over here. So Heroku needs this. It needs to know what dependencies your application has. So we've got that. It needs this proc file, and I'll explain that in a moment. And the third thing it requires is a setup script. Okay, so the reason it requires this setup script is there are some things that need to run on the web server that Heroku is going to deploy. So you don't have to configure the web server. It's all zero configuration, no configuration required by you. But it does need to know that, hey, your application uses Streamlit to run it, right? So what I'll do is I'll first go to this proc file. And in this proc file, I'll say web. So what that's telling Heroku is it's saying, I want to run a web server. That's what the container is going to run. It's going to run a web server. And then once it spins up that web server, I want it to run 2 commands on the command line. So the first command I want it to line is something called, it's a shell script that we're going to write called setup.sh. And the second thing, after running that shell script, I want it to also run Streamlit. And if you remember the command we gave earlier, it's exactly the same. Say Streamlit run app.py. So these 2 commands we want it to run inside the web server of Heroku. So as soon as it spins up a web server, run the setup script and then run the Streamlit application. So if you look on here, if I type Streamlit run app.py, yeah. So this is our application, right? So that's but this runs on our local host. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to run in the Heroku's web server. So that's why these 2. So now you might ask, okay, we've got the proc file done, we've got the requirements. So what's in the setup script? So that's what we're going to do. So setup. And in the setup script, in order for Streamlit to run, we've on this web server that we have created, we need to create some things that Streamlit requires in order to work. Okay. So first we'll make a directory, or directory as they say in some places, and we don't want any prompts, so we just want it to be fully automated. And so we make a Streamlit directory, and then if you have taken system commands, these things will be familiar to you. But essentially, we are making a shell script to create some files. So Streamlit requires, in order for Streamlit to work on a web server, it requires this directory called Streamlit. And it also requires two files inside this Streamlit directory. One is called credentials.toml and config.toml. And the contents of that is what we are going to create. And so, yeah, that all looks correct. So general and email. And what we want to do really here is put, because this is be like your credentials for your application. You notice this redirection output is the same what we used earlier when we are doing quick freeze. So we're saying put all this stuff that we've just typed up and put it into this file called credentials.toml and inside this Streamlit directory. So create the file called credentials.toml and it must contain these things. So that's what that says. A second file we have to create. That looks right, server. So we don't have to put any details here. We want it to be so what the word headless means, and it's not important to know, but headless means you want the server to run without a console attached to it. Again, if you did system commands, you'll understand what that means. And then this is something, again, if you've done MAD1, you'll recognize, or MAD2 or MAD1, cross origins, scripting, that's what that setting is for. And then you want to, so this port number, you want it to pick it up from the Heroku environment itself, because they will have already configured a port environment for it. So that's why this $port means pick it up from the environment. And then all this you want to store in this file. So it will create these two files with these contents in it. So that's the setup.sh file. So that's a shell script file. And we've got the three things that we require for Heroku. So once that's done, now it's time to actually push these things onto GitHub. Because remember, we need to actually connect Heroku to the GitHub, because that's where it will pick it up from. So I'll commit these. I'll say publish. And yep, I want to publish it to Streamlit demo. And it has to be a public repository. Otherwise, Heroku won't be able to access it. Okay, great. So that's ready. Let's have a look on GitHub. Yeah, so here, Streamlit demo. All the files that we just worked on, it's the proc file, that's the application we just created, requirements, and the setup. I hope I haven't made any typos in there. Just double check. Sure, it's all correct. It's okay. Looks fine. I think this is okay. Yeah, we'll find out. Okay. Okay, any questions before I proceed? I know there's a lot of stuff that's coming very fast at you. So anything, are you guys following so far? Yeah. Any doubts? Something that you want to ask? Oh, right. So save so much time writing all the lines for HTML, CSS, things like that. So, yeah, so that's another thing I was going to mention, because Sharath mentioned CSS. Streamlit actually has theming. You can theme it as well. Okay, so they've really done a great job. These guys who guys or girls or whoever they are who created Streamlit. They've done a fantastic job. Right. So the next thing is to connect to GitHub, and then so that's my GitHub, and ours is called Streamlit demo. Shows up. Yay! It shows up. So connect. Okay, lovely. And then don't do automatic deploys because first of all, we remember I told you about the fact that this is not free. So let's just do a manual deploy. Then the other thing is, I'm not sure, I might have. Okay, we'll see. Let's spin up the. So they call them dynos. Okay. I don't know why they call them dynos, as in dynamos, probably. So let's deploy this. Yeah, you can also deploy whichever branch you want. Some log starting. So now Heroku is spinning up the web server. It's installing pip and installing all the requirements that are in our requirements file. So far, everything is looking okay. It's basically spinning up the web server and about to start our Streamlit app. Still going on. Still going on. Okay, so this will take a little bit of time. Right. So it's almost ready. In fact, I think this is the web address. Yeah, it says deployed. Okay, here's the moment of truth. Oh my word! I have a working worldwide web application. Now I want you guys to try this out because I've deployed it. Right. This is the. So I'll paste it in the. I'll paste the web address in there, and you guys can give it a spin and see if you can access it. Go ahead and access it. See if you can, and let me know what's the result. You can unmute your mics. It's very lonely doing a TA session without interaction.
It's accessible and all the functionalities are working.
Now, doesn't that blow your mind? I remember even 2015, right? So I had done a web business. I won't get into the details of it, but it took me ages. I used to had to provision a server, rent space, learn Linux, learn how to build a whole LAMP stack, and that is even before I go to preparing the application, deal with security issues, deal with SSH keys. All these things I had to learn myself in order to just get to this stage. In one TA session where I've been spending a lot of time just faffing about with various things, we have now a fully functional web application that we have just deployed worldwide. I don't know if that blows your mind, but it definitely blows my mind because I know how difficult it used to be to do this and how easy it has become to do this. The barrier to entry has completely evaporated. And any one of you today can deploy a fully functioning, interactive, reactive web application for the world to see. And it's fully scalable. The infrastructure behind it, with regards to Heroku anyway, you've got all sorts of ways of being able to, let's say, for example, I think this configure add-on or something like that. But just trying to see. Anyway, the if I yeah, I think it's so. Yeah, so you can. So let's say, for example, you can rent like Dino hours, okay, $5 per month or something. So Dino hours is a scalable thing. What happens is when now there are 13 or 14 of you guys, right? So because 13 or 14 of you guys are there, it'll spin up how many ever resources it requires, and then when you stop using the application, it automatically spins them down. So you don't, so it doesn't use up any resources for Heroku. So you get charged 1,000 eco hours of usage. Is how this works. The, the whole point of what I'm trying to say is this is what's called service as an application. Sorry, service as software as a service, and uh, that's what this model is. And they may ask you in the end term, they won't ask you how to use Heroku, but what they will ask you is, what is, say, for example, SaaS, right? So that's something they may ask, and you should be able to answer it and know how to deal with it. So, but yeah, so this was a demonstration of Streamlit and Heroku, and I hope it was eye-opening to you as it was for me, and that you guys will be able to do great things with it. This market. Okay, so okay. Any thoughts? Any comments? Well,
Uh, you see, uh, uh, I just want to say one thing. I actually deployed one application using Render. Jivraj
yeah.
actually told me to do that because I mean, he, he did it when he told me to do that. So yeah, you did. Don't laugh, you did. So over there, I had to particularly install one dependency. I don't remember exactly the name because the name was pretty weird, and I had to make it inside the requirements.txt. That's pretty straightforward though. But particularly that dependency I wanted to do, I mean, to apply. Otherwise, it wasn't working when I was trying to deploy it. It was getting failed or something. But with Heroku, I don't know what's the matter, but it didn't ask you for that. But actually, why it is like that?
Okay. It might be so. You're talking with using Streamlit and the other application that you are using, your other service that you are using, right? Something else you used for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes.
So one thing might be that so Streamlit, when it runs, if you look at the documentation, it says that it kind of uses the Pi web server um, in order to be able to do some of the things it does. Okay, so you know that Pi has its own HTTP server, right? So it uses some of those components for it, and that's the reason we created that. Share. I'm not saying this is definitely the answer, but it's probably something to look at. So, so if you look at the setup SH, there were three components for the Streamlit to actually work, because that's actually what's running the application. So you've got the Heroku is just your web server, right? You could just as
Yeah.
easily have run it in IIS or some other web server technology or Docker technology or something like that, right? But what Streamlit requires is it requires this dot Streamlit directory. It requires this credentials, what do you call it? Credentials file called credentials.toml, and requires this config.toml. So it requires these files. Now, whether these server configuration things are unique to your platform, that I am not sure. So you might have to look up documentation from
Ah,
Streamlit
yes.
to fix that. Is my guess.
Yes, I understood. I understood now. Exactly. It was actually
Okay.
asking me to manually configure the server to run it.
Okay.
Now I got it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So that might. So, any other comments from anyone? I mean, you guys are very quiet. I mean, sometimes I'm not sure if you actually understood things or having doubts. Can I have some responses, please? Okay. So only San is awake today and engaged. Kavya, yes, Kavya, thank you. Even coded along. That's great. That's what I was hoping for. I hope you guys coded along because that's how you would really appreciate it. So great, nice, nice. Okay, so I've got a task for you guys then. Can you create now? You've seen how quick it was to create application in Streamlit, right? I want you guys to maybe perhaps make a working demo of an application real quick and share it with others right now. If you know, I'll give you sort of 10-15 minutes, and you can um, quickly spin up a Streamlit application and then just share your screen and show others what you've done. Does that sound like a plan? No one's responding. Nobody likes my plan.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. And for those that are not able to do it for any reason, what I can do, let's see. I'm wondering how do I send a form to you guys? Let's see here. More options. So I haven't tried this before. What I want to do is send a form to you guys. So I'm just going to try this out because I've never tried this out before, and oops, exactly the wrong thing here. Mm, right. So I want you guys to try and see if you can access this form.
Yeah, it's opening using student ID.
Okay, okay, cool. And are you able to like actually use it as the way it's meant to be? It's meant to be like a type of quiz or something. So I'm just giving it a spin to see if it's useful to you guys or not. Because eventually we'll be sending out a form for your assignments and things like that if you have any grading discrepancies or things like that. Meanwhile, while you're looking at that, if any one of you guys have any questions, doubts, concerns that you've had about the course, you could let me know now. And I could either note them down, we check with the team, or it can be on anything that we've done in TDS so far.
Well, then just one thing. In the
Yeah,
question two, in
yeah,
the question two, in the form, there are multiple options that are correct. If you go by
Yes.
data frame name
Yeah. It's meant
and
to be an
then
MCQ.
the attribute name, no, you see, the thing I'm trying to tell you, I understand that's MCQ, but
Yeah.
let's say my data frame got 5 columns or 5 attributes, okay, in the feature
Yeah. Yeah.
matrix.
Yeah.
Let's say x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. So if I
Yeah.
go df, which is my data frame, let's say that's the name, df
Yeah.
within square brackets, and I
Yeah.
put within quotes x1, then dot
Yeah.
value counts, it works. But if I go
Yeah.
df dot x1 dot value counts, that also works.
Yeah.
So if I go by unique function, the unique function would also work, right?
Yes. So
Then in the second question you said, I mean, not you said, I mean, in the question, second question,
yeah.
it says that within the data frame, I need to find how many possible values or all the possible values. That means we should go for the unique values.
Yes.
So it would be like df. I mean, let's say it's df, the data frame name. So data frame name, that df dot book dot unique would work. Also, if we go
Yes.
within square braces, that should also work, right?
Correct. But you should be able
That's
to
exactly
select
what I'm
both, I
trying to
think.
say. Yeah, that's why I did ask you. The multiple options are correct in that question.
Yeah. 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 There are multiple options correct in that question. Are you able to
Hmm.
select both?
Okay.
That's
No,
my
no, no,
question.
no,
No.
no, 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 no. That's purely radio button. Only one can be selected. That's why I did ask
Oh,
you.
right.
Is that
Okay. Okay.
no? Yeah.
I'm surprised that you can't click both because I specifically said to make it multiple choice. So that's good to know. Let me see if I don't know if it's changing in real time for you guys while I'm doing this. Try and reload and see if anything has changed.
Actually, everything
Uh,
got changed to MSQ.
oh, good, good. Right, Nandan, right? Uh, was it Nandan? Someone raised their hand.
Sir,
Nandan.
in project two, is the portal issue because when I'm trying all different answers, still it is showing your submission has wrong answers. So
I'm sorry, you were not very clear, but could you like speak
in the
like
project,
slow? Yeah.
in the project two, when I'm even if I'm doing different, I mean changing the options and putting like that, still it is showing your submission has wrong answers. Is there something wrong in portal or something wrong in
So
my submission?
right. So this is okay. So uh, when it was
Mm-hmm.
released, few like last week, I think it was released, right? I specifically asked JK if because he's like the head of the technical team. So I asked him this very question in a live in a live discussion with him. So it wasn't even over text or anything. I specifically asked him, "Is the script working correctly? That is, does it give? Does it show? Yeah. So in other words, does it do what it's supposed to do when students write all the correct answers? Does it show that they will get the correct answers? And if they write a wrong answer, does it tell them that they have wrong answers? So
Mm-hmm.
his response to that was, "There's nothing wrong with the script." These were his words. There's nothing wrong with the script, and it's designed so that even if you have one wrong answer, it will say that you have wrong answers, and it won't identify which one is wrong. Or if you wrote one correct answer and all the others were wrong, it will still say you have wrong answers. It won't help you identify which one is wrong, or it won't
Okay.
identify which one is correct. So this is what he told me. Okay. Now
Okay.
I've seen that there's a long discourse post. I think there are 25, 26 posts on there now, and I was getting concerned about it. So what I did was I sent him the discourse post, and I specifically again asked him the question: uh, Is my understanding of the script correct? That this is what it's supposed to do, which is when you get
But
all
at
the
least
answers
if
correctly.
one TA, I mean, do testing like solve it and check it. So it should be done, right? Testing.
Yeah. So the data sets that you got and the answer keys that you got, they are all been they have all been from last term. So in other words, they're all been the answer keys correct and um, the project is correct. But the problem is we can't test what the backend team can test. So even if I submit it, I can't really uh, test it in that sense, okay? Because we don't have the facility to check that. But the backend team is able to. So that's why I asked him, and he said today. In fact, he messaged me and said he will validate it again and get back to me. So far he hasn't got back to me, but I have raised it with them. So that's the
Okay.
status at the moment. My suggestion is you just don't waste too much time on it. If you feel that your answers are all correct, then
Yeah.
just let it be for now until I get an update. The reason I've not been responding to the post is I have to wait for something official before I respond, right? So
Yes, sir.
otherwise it's not
Got it.
possible.
Got it.
Yeah.
I thought it's
So
up, it's in your hand, but it is not. So yeah, we have to
yeah,
wait.
it's not. Yeah, it's directly in my hand. So, but it has been raised with the concerned people, and as soon as I find out, I will definitely make a post immediately, so that you guys
Yes.
get the latest information.
Thank you. Thank you for responding.
Any other questions?
Sir, since no one asking, will be there any mock for interim?
Okay, so that's a good question. Initially, we were going to try and make it possible to get a mock for term, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen because the professor is not available for this next week and a half. So, as he's the one who will have to create a mock if there's going to be a mock. Um, it's very unlikely that it will happen. If we
Okay,
can
so,
get it,
so hmm.
available to you, then we will try our best. But I would not at this stage. I would say it's not realistic to expect one because
Sir, so the all the assignments are like practical things. So in, maybe if we can assure that doing PYQs can help us, I mean, understanding
okay.
how the questions will be, these things will be fine. Like,
Yeah, so
how can
that's
we
the
go
form I
directly?
did. Yeah, so I sent a form on the. I sent a form right just now to you guys. That
Yes, yes,
form.
yes. I have seen this.
Yeah, so that's an example of a PYQ, right? I mean that's. Uh,
How the questions can be.
yeah, that's an example of how questions will look.
Okay.
Um, and so over the next few days, in the next few sessions rather, we will try and get you some PYQs like this so that you can test yourself out
Okay.
and
This
see
sounds
how you.
good.
Yeah, but
Okay.
there is one caveat to this. The caveat
Mm-hmm.
is um, it won't contain any questions from the new materials that have come. All these questions are from previous terms. Um,
Okay, got it.
so, so that's in other words, not the questions are from previous terms, but so much,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
I
more
mean,
like the
similar
topics are
pattern.
from previous terms. Yeah, similar pattern,
Acha, okay.
but it won't have any of the new materials that have been released for this term because this term there were a lot of
So
new
it is
things
sure, right?
released.
In interim, we don't have to like, since the course material changed, we don't have to like ratta marna naya material ko.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you just
I
said.
mean, by
It was
heart the
not
new
clear.
material in order to ace the exam because the ROE these things so messed up for me. So yeah, that's why I'm concerning about interim.
Yeah,
The assignments
yeah,
also, I don't think they are helpful. When I opened the previous term questions, I was not able to do them, even though I did all the graded assignments, understood that how the things work.
yeah, yeah. I mean that, yeah, because it's new material, right? So that's true.
So, like,
So
can you
that's
should we say like doing PYQs can help me understand the things how like okay,
yeah. The PYQs, like so the one I shared with you, these are all things that we have covered this term. None of these are new. I mean,
okay,
these are all things that we have already covered in TA sessions. So in that sense, this PYQ is a good example of what to expect. You would need to know, for example, K means. You would need to know some aspects of Streamlit. You would need to know HTML scraping, uh, text blob, open refine. So this is a fairly good representation of what kinds of and how the questions will be structured.
Okay.
So that's the reason I constructed this for you guys, so that you can get a feel for it. And I think there's only about 18 questions in this. And this is the thing about tedious end term. It will be generally in the past it has been very easy. The reason it's very easy is it's a very practical kind of. So it's very difficult to test you on something uh, which is a practical course. So that's why the questions will be of this nature, where it will ask you something like, you know, what function will do this, or what is how does k means work, or something like that, right? These are the kind of pattern of you can expect from NTERM. And when I wrote the NTERM exam, what I found is I wrote TDS exam first and did all the other ones later. The reason being, in TDS, either you know the answer straight away or you don't know the answer. So because it is so clear cut, you can finish the question paper very rapidly. I mean, I finished the question paper in less than, I think it was like 15 or 20 minutes. I finished the whole paper. So it gives you more time for your other subjects as well. So just keep that in mind. The best approach is do TDS first and then do your other subjects. You'll get more time for your other subjects that you're writing on. Because all TDS questions will be like this. Either you know it or you don't know that time. So you'll be able to finish very quickly. Right, so do we have any working demonstrations of Streamlit apps? We should, considering how easy it is to create one. Come on, guys. And the Streamlit app, it doesn't have to be very fancy. Just something basic is fine. I mean, the app I wrote really has only 15 lines, if I really look at it carefully. 15 or 16 lines.
Thank you.
And yeah, no worries. So at least show me one demonstration of a Streamlit app. And in case you're having problems, remember to use the Streamlit documentation. That's very useful as well. No one? Shan, you have a working Streamlit app for me? You don't have to deploy to Heroku or anything. You can just
I'm
share your
I'm
screen.
actually solving the paper that you just gave.
Everybody is
That's exactly
solving.
what I'm doing right now.
Everybody is doing it. Yeah. They found an opportunity to get in, prepare for NTERM. That's what they've chosen.
No, see, Carlton, the syllabus
Yeah.
got changed, right? So we all are completely under that, no, under that threat umbrella, what they say.
Yes.
That there is an umbrella
Yeah.
over above which we got threats and all that. So that's why.
Only one response so far in the PYQ. Come on, guys. What's this? I spent time constructing this for you guys. Okay, so once you submit it, Sayan, was it you who submitted it, or who is the one who submitted it? Because I've made it anonymous, so I don't know who submitted it.
No. I still got one question left.
Okay,
Once that's
who
done,
submitted it?
I'll submit it.
Someone has finished it. So who is it who finished it? Because I want to get some feedback as well. So, hello, anyone? Come on, guys. One of you guys submitted the PYQ, and then you're not telling me who is it that submitted it. Okay. Well, the reason I wanted to ask the question is I want to see, are you guys able to see the answers once you submitted it? Like which ones you got correct, which ones you got wrong. Are you able to see that? That's what I want to find out. Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, you're audible.
Okay. Oh,
You're audible. You're audible. And again, one more thing. The last question. I
yeah,
kept thinking about it. Again,
yeah,
K-means clustering. If my K value is very low, then my inertia would be super high. So if my inertia is super high, that means my model would overfit.
yeah.
It means my variability so should be high, means my variance is high. Again, that's
Yes.
MCQ, not MSQ.
Yeah, yeah. MCQ. Is it not MCQ for you?
No, it's not MSQ. It's multiple choice questions. I can't select two options there. The last question.
Yeah. Can you refresh it and just have a look?
Okay, give me a sec. Yeah, the last question became MSQ. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. So, Shayan, did you submit yours? Is that, I got two responses now.
I submitted right now.
Okay, three responses. Yeah, yeah. So, how did it go?
It was fun. It was fun. It was fun. It was fun. Gotta say that.
Okay. Are you able to see your responses, like which ones you got correct, which one you got wrong?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. What else are you able to see? I mean, because I can't see what's on your screen. So,
It actually shows. So it actually shows which questions I got correct. So if there is a green, green tick, that means I got that question correct.
okay.
And it shows a red cross alongside the color red. The
Okay.
question becomes red alongside a red
Okay.
cross, and it shows the correct answer
Yeah.
below it. So yeah, that's the thing.
Okay. So, yeah. So, I just constructed this for you guys so that you can get a feel for it. So, hope that was useful.
Was, but again, you should have given, like partial marking. I
Yeah.
completely overlooked the last option, which was low bias.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if high variance is there, then it's automatically the bias variance trade-off would make the bias low. I didn't choose and I got it wrong. And now I want to kick myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. The thing is, in the final exam, you will get partial marks for those things, right? But um, this is just practice, right? So you shouldn't be too upset about it because it's not going to go on a record anywhere or anything that you missed it or something. But at least it gives you a good feel for the exam. Does it show you any summary statistics or anything like that?
No, actually, it doesn't.
Okay. Okay. Right. So it just shows you which questions you got right and which ones you got wrong. It does all that.
Yes, yes, yes,
That's fine.
yes.
Okay, that's good. So, any doubts about the ones you got wrong? It was easy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And this is exactly the kind of difficulty that most tedious end-term exams have. It's just been this sort of thing. Okay, so I hope today's session has been useful to you guys.
It was.
I Yeah, I don't have anything else for today. So if you all want to still continue with the form, that's fine. It won't disappear even if the session closes because the form is separate from the session itself. So you can continue to work on your responses to it. And if you've got any other queries, you can ask me now. Uh, I'll probably stop recording in 2 minutes' time. So Yuvraj, any comments? Anwar, was the session okay? Were you able to follow everything? Do you understand? Was the quiz I gave you guys useful? Yeah, Anwar says yes. Okay, good. Yuvraj says yes. Mohammed, you did you find you were able to follow today? Was it straightforward and easy? Is there something you had any questions about? Ram is left. Okay. Sandhya, do you have any questions or queries? Is it okay? You you guys don't. Okay, okay. Thanks, Mom. At least you responded. That's good. I'm very glad. Okay. Sandhya, did you have any questions, or were you able to follow everything that we did today? Okay, guys. So if you got no question, I'm going to stop recording now anyway.